Welcome to the Why Dad podcast. We are your hosts, Paul Wandry and Andrew Stopelstead, and we are on a mission to figure out what it means to be a dad, why it matters, and how to be the best possible. Best dad, best man, best husband, co-parent, what have you. So that's what we're doing, and we're here doing that again with today's episode, which, Andrew, you want to tell us what we're diving into today?
Yeah, it's going to be hopefully a fun one. We'll find out. This was a hard topic for me to wrap my head around, just being an aspiring dad. So, Paul, get ready for questions, hopefully galore, but we'll see what happens.
I am here to answer what I can.
Oh, you'll answer, don't worry.
Yeah, they might not be the right answers, but I'll answer.
No, today we're going to be talking about grandparents and the role they play in our parenting and the role they play in our children's lives. So, obviously, I don't have kids, so that's why I said this is going to be a hard one for me. And I only have that perspective of an uncle looking in and getting to pick and choose when I want to be involved and how to be involved. So.
Yes, indeed. The pinch hitter, as it were. Fun fact, quotes around fact, because I actually don't know how factual this is, but because this was based off of a real headline or a real hook. Supposedly, and it makes sense, kids who have involved grandparents and grandparents who are involved in their lives are more confident.
Why do you think that is? Or what does ChatGPT tell you?
I mean, my laptop is up high. Okay, I didn't want to go into this weird typing position, but hold please. This is where we need ATOT to be our Googler, and he can come back. Let's see. Hey, ChatGPT, evidence about how involved grandparents have an impact on their grandkids' lives. And that was actually probably a really bad prompt. I think AI prompt engineers are going to be like, this guy does not know what he's doing.
And I can give some of my own personal experiences later on too, because my mom's parents were very involved in my life, partly just due to moving from state to state, so they were like where we'd live till we moved to the next spot. But we can get into that later on.
Yeah, I think just anecdotally, it's huge. I remember, so I grew up in a military family, so we saw our grandparents rarely, but when we did, it was a momentous occasion. We would go on road trips across the country to visit my grandparents, who then lived in Steubenville, Ohio. And I have fond memories of both the road trips and the visits themselves. But yeah, with a little bit more evidence, there's studies galore. Yeah. An Oxford University 2011 study, increased emotional stability and mental health. Right. U.S. Department of Education, and 2008 by Chenlu and Kaplan, increased academic achievement, higher social skills and moral development. There's added buffer during crisis. So they serve as emotional and practical anchors, higher physical health, and there's risk reduction. Ooh, I like this one. Cultural identity and legacy.
That is something I didn't think about till I started looking into this, but it's true.
Yeah. We've talked about community and having grandparents part of your community and having that influence your kids.
Here's a wildly weird, interesting.
Wildly weird. I like that.
Good food recipes are being lost because Italian nonnas don't have anybody to pass it on to.
No. That's
Yeah, I know.
that's
No,
really
like,
sad.
I was reading this thing about like certain like recipes or ways of doing things in Italy are being lost because there's that cultural continuity is being broken because of that. Interesting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, interesting, sad. It's kind of like losing a great historical landmark or building or something to natural or man-made disaster. As you're never going to get that back. It's lost. It's lost to the black hole of history. Speaking of nonnas, have you watched the movie Nonnas with Vince Vaughn?
No, I haven't.
We haven't yet either, but many people have been recommending it. So it's on our watch list along with Sinners. Whenever we finally get a 2-hour stretch to actually watch
Right.
something. Anyway, Nonnas. There's actually a restaurant in New York where the kitchen is run by Italian grandmas, and that's what this movie is about. Yeah, it's about that restaurant, or like the forming of the restaurant. And if you can imagine, like a bunch of Italian grandmas just like yammering at each other and with their ideas of the ideal recipe. Anyway. So some couple fun tangents. So how does this relate to our topic du jour?
Yeah. We just asked for that list, but like for what ChatGPT thinks are the benefits. But what in your role as a dad have been the benefits of having grandma and grandpa Arlt so close and involved in Evie's life? Been like, and then Jeff and Lisa's involvement and benefits that comes from that. I can speak to my own anecdotal stuff, but just things that are like concrete that you think are kind of like tied into this, but more broadly universal.
Yeah.
You can't take anecdotal and like generalize, but it gives a good start.
Yeah, I think something my father-in-law says pretty much any time that they bring over muffins or they pick up or drop off Evie and now Liam, sums it up nicely. So Sarah and I, we would love to end up somewhere in the mountains, like Colorado, Asheville, North Carolina, somewhere like that. That desire is is at a bit of a simmer right now, but it was definitely at more of a boil shortly after having Evie, and we were going out to Colorado every year, checking out different places, different locations, and we were like, okay, within 5 years we're going to be moved. Mm-hmm. That has since changed, and the thing that my father-in-law says is, you wouldn't have this in Colorado, would you? You wouldn't have somebody be picking up your kids on last minute notice. You wouldn't have fresh made dinners every Sunday. You wouldn't have these delicious chocolate chip banana muffins. Like, you got me there. But jesting aside, it's so true. If we were to uproot and move to Colorado, or like you name the place, unless we had an existing infrastructure there, we would be, even though we would be surrounded by masses of people, we would be on our own little island. And we would have to start building our community from scratch. And, you know, that saying, it takes a village.
Right.
Anybody who has kids or knows anybody who has kids, Andrew, you are living the it takes a village, knows that that's true. And side note, Sarah and I always, like, ever since having Evie, we've always just been in complete awe of single parents, because it's like, it's hard enough with two parents and with a support network. So point being is, it's huge to have grandparents, and if barring close relatives, close friends, we're also blessed to have a number of close friends. You're a phone call away. We have a couple that live in the same town as us that are amazing supports. So there's the practical side of things, right? There's the practical benefit, like logistics. Hey, oh my goodness, like today was actually an anomaly where you and I had this podcast scheduled, and Sarah's in the office. And, oh no, Mary and Dale aren't available to watch Evie and Leah. What is this? So we actually had to scrounge up a babysitter, which is rare. But so there's the practical side of things. And then there's the more wholesome, the more integral side of things, which is like the love and the relationship that Evie and Liam get from having her grandparents nearby. I mean, I'm speaking to Mary and Dale, specifically my in-laws, because my dad and his wife are out of state. And it's a win-win, at least in my eyes. Like, maybe one day we'll have grandparents on the show, whether Evie's or your parents or something. But it's a win-win because Evie gets that additional love and affection and support in Liam. And so do they. Like, they have that much more love, that much more joy and stress. But, like, the joy outweighs the stress in their life. Memories made. And I think from the perspective of Evie and Liam, it's like they have that much more love, and being loved equates to knowing that you are lovable. And knowing that you are lovable translates to so much. It translates to self-confidence. It translates to kindness and empathy and loving in turn. So I think the benefits are innumerable.
Right.
So anyway, forgive me for waxing waxing long,
good.
but
this was good. I want to take it back because you brought up a point that's been coming up in quite a few of our conversations lately, and just the community aspect and the whole it takes a village. Like, that is an absolutely important aspect because family is the building block of a society. People can argue it's an individual, but you create a mini culture within a family that builds a greater culture, and it's something you don't really do on an individual level. We can have discussions and arguments about that later, but that's my how I opine upon it, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, which brings into what you just said there. There's the whole two-way street of love going in and out. Not only is the child understanding more about themselves and learning that lovability and that self-confidence through, but then they're learning how to give back that love, especially towards and that joy to their grandparents. And they're learning how to do that. So it's an opportunity that they have that I personally and anecdotally wouldn't trade the world for the relationship I have with my grandparents, especially my mom's mom. You got to meet Gina and how amazing a woman she was.
Absolutely, yeah. Felt like family being welcomed in by her.
And like, she was one of the few people in the world that I could just go and sit with, and up until her dying day, and just be completely open, and I felt safe and secure and just loved no matter what came out of my mouth or anything like that. And she would just she always had the words of wisdom, and I think that's important. It's for children to have that, here's someone that's even lived more than mom and dad, and know a thing or two. And they also get to see our relationship with our parents and figure out like how they want to have their relationship with us based on that.
That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that.
It's Evie looks at you and is like, oh, dad really loves grandma and grandpas, and like she's gonna think dad was a good son, and I want to be just an amazing daughter towards dad. And so it even bonds your own relationship builds your own relationship with Evie, I think.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on a scientific level, but that's what I'm just like, thoughts are coming in, and I'm just trying to hypothesize.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I think what it all comes down to are relationships and connection. And I've seen a lot of parenting material that is focused on that. Actually, our last guest that you and I interviewed that will be dropping in a few weeks.
It would have already dropped, who knows.
So we got to sit down with a play therapist, and he said one of the most important things, and also like one of the biggest gaps in children's lives that creates a lot of that turmoil is connection, or the lack thereof. And I think that's what it comes down to, whether it's grandparents, uncles, aunts, funkles, fants. No, that doesn't work.
Ants.
Yeah, or adopted aunts and uncles, like your Evie's adopted uncle. By nature, your and my bond. But those are moments of connection that will make a difference in the world. For example, I think this came up in a past episode, but you and your mom met me and Sarah and Evie and my aunt and uncle at a brewery, and Evie had been met with one disappointment after another up to that point. And like any kid in their right mind would have justifiably lost it. And she was there. She was on the precipice. And you took the moment, you took her over, she sat in your lap, and I would just sum those several minutes that you two spent together as connection, as connection. Like, it wasn't anything more than that. You didn't rationalize stuff with her. You just gave her space to feel, and you helped her work through the moment. And why? Like, why was that possible? Because you and her have a relationship. You and her allow opportunity for connection. And if there wasn't that moment, and there wasn't that opportunity, like there wasn't that space for that relationship, then probably she would have ended up on the floor doing the toddler. She's not a toddler anymore. Doing the 4-year-old windmill. Yep. And I think that sums it up nicely there.
No, that's good. And I know that branches away from like the grandparents, but that's still something. Again, I can speak to everything you just said in a very anecdotal way, and it will only.
Oh, that's my experience too. It's just anecdotal.
Exactly. It'll only prove what you just said with the Evie example. There's just something important about that type of relationship you can build, and I understand like it may not be possible for all our listeners, depending on how their own relationships with their parents are, and that was
coming to my mind as well. Those who like they don't even like my mom, for example, she's not around, but like Evie still has 4 other grandparents still, even though my mom's not around. But what about those who like none of their parents are around, or they have acrimonious relationships with their parents, or they need to keep distance because it's not healthy? Yeah, that's really tricky.
And I think it's a different discussion for a different time, but it has to be acknowledged here.
Yeah,
I know some people would be like, today's episode may not apply to me, but
yeah, I think it still does because like we talked about earlier, at the end of the day, even though we're talking about grandparents, it all comes down to it takes a village. It takes building a community, and you need to go out there and build your own community.
Yes. And
what we're talking about here applies to that community, whether it's grandparents or not.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Whether it be your extended family or your brothers and sisters that you still have in your life, or whoever, like you said, just because our friendship and relationship is so deep that I'm an uncle figure to Evie, things like that. I think that's 100% agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Getting away a little bit from that topic, Paul, like how this is, I gotta think of the words. The idea is you and Sarah have your parenting style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you reconcile is like a bad word for it, but integrate like the grandparent style into like Evie's life? Like how do you like what goes on behind the scenes there between in the family to make sure Evie's being raised the way you want her, like you and Sarah want,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, I am so glad you asked. Drum roll. Okay, so we have two different stories, like two different sets of dynamics going on with the two sets of grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Local grandparents, I don't know if we've ever had an actual sit down. Hey, this is how we want to parent, and this is what we expect from you. I feel like earlier on, like when we were first dropping Abby off or whatnot, we did share some of those tidbits, but it wasn't all in one fell swoop. And they've also, we spend so much time together, they
just naturally
they pick up on what we do. And then we've talked about stuff about like mindset and how we don't like to use like fixed mindset language. Oh, you're so smart or whatever. And we talked about those implications and whatnot. With the out-of-state grandparents, there's less ice time. So they don't see as much of that. And also it's just a different relationship. My dad remarried after we lost our mom, which I'm very happy for him, but I don't have the relationship with his wife that I had with my mom.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of dynamics going on, and hopefully this isn't oversharing. There came a point where they were visiting and they were doing what grandparents may do, and they were jumping in to like help guide Evie, and they were grandparenting the way that they parented, which is different from the way we parent. And I did not handle it well initially. I handled it as a true Midwesterner, passive aggressively. Mm-hmm. A lot of side comments or parenting over their grandparenting. And it did not go well. Without getting too in the nitty gritty, like it came to a head on that trip, and like I ended up losing my cool and calling Evie's grandma out, and yeah, there was just like, you could feel the electricity in the air. Yeah. So that was that. Like, we let things come to a head. We did not address things. We did not take things head on. We could have avoided that by having a forthright conversation early on. And basically, the issue came down to I had these expectations of how Sarah and I had agreed to raise Evie and now Liam. And I was holding them to those expectations without ever having communicated those expectations. So they were, of course, going to fail. You give somebody a paintbrush, and then in your mind, like, okay, there's this shelf of like red paint, blue paint, pink paint. This is a very colorful house. And in your mind, okay, I want them to pick the blue paint, and I want them to paint the edges with blue, and then the middle with pink. Again, a very colorful house. But you don't mention that. And then they go and they paint the wall red. It's okay, whose fault is it? Okay, it's my fault. I didn't, like, of course they're not going to meet your expectations. You didn't communicate it. So that's what happened then. And things were acrimonious for a while. And eventually we had to have a virtual sit down where, Sarah and I shared all our grievances and they had the opportunity to share theirs. And we were like, hey, at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We all love Evie, and we all want her to become the best person that she can be and to have the most happy and fulfilled life possible. So we're on the same team here. So let's get on the same page. And we took that opportunity to say, okay, these are the things that we do, and these are the things we don't do. An extreme example, but no corporal punishment. Not that they had done that, but we don't spank. We don't we don't even time out. Our version of timeout is sitting there with them to help them process. And we walked them through that, and we walked them through some examples. For better or for worse, I don't know if they read it, but we got them. We sent them the book "Good Inside" by Dr. Becky Kennedy, which we got a lot out of, which has been a big influence on our parenting style. So I know par for the course, Paul for par's course, long-winded, but to sum it up, I'd say that's the wrong way to do it and a possible right way to do it, because things have been going much better since we had that frank conversation, and we should have done that from the get-go. And if we had done that, it would have been a breeze. And then what we have set the stage for by having that conversation is, okay, hey, we talked about this. If there are any conflicts, it'd be easy. We won't do it in the moment unless it's life or death, which it would be very rare for it to be. Is, hey, we talked about this. Totally appreciate what you're doing and what you're communicating to Evie, and that you're just looking out for her. But this is what we would expect, just to clarify. But we've set the stage to have those conversations and to address it and not let it accumulate like I did initially.
So, communication.
Yeah, basic communication. Basic communication. I should have just said that.
For me as an uncle, I find it. Different, interesting, weird. I want to be a part of my niece's nephew's life in a very special way, and helping them become the best version they can be. Same with Evie. Sometimes, even when the different parenting styles, I myself can find myself hesitant to even want to action, especially if, say, you and Sarah are maybe still there but in the other room or something like that. What's one of them? Oh, when the cousins were over and the girls were climbing on the dining room table and standing on top of it, and all three of us were there with our backs turned, and I caught it. But it's okay. So what do you do? Do you just tell dads, or do you tell the girls hey, sweetie, you're gonna get hurt if you do that? What's the best approach as me as an uncle or on the outside that just trying to look out for the better of those girls?
Yeah, it's walking the balance between crossing lines and just being an uninvolved friend, uncle, whatever. I'm just saying that generally, not that you would ever be that or I would ever think that, but yeah, and I found myself in similar situations with friends' kids.
Because it's easy for me to say, oh, you need to get down, you're going to hurt yourself. But yeah, it's just, you got to be quick with it too, because you don't want to cross the line while doing the right thing, but at the same time, yeah. I've always found my way around it with you and Evie is just when she starts doing something funny, I just ask her what she's doing, because then she has to stop and explain to me what's going on, and then I can be like, oh, this is something for Dad to handle.
Tag, you're it. Yep. Yeah, and I think that's just fine. Yeah, I think it just comes down to clear communication. And as far as you're concerned, and I'm concerned, you haven't crossed any lines, and nor have you fallen short of any. And if you had or ever would, that would be an opportunity, for, hey, Andrew, stop being a dipshit.
Be the same to you, don't worry. No, but it's just, and I don't know if like your brothers and sisters have felt similar thoughts or ways about that. But we all want what's best for Abby and the circumstances.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
not
I think
there all the time in her life and knowing how things go.
Yeah, I think these approaches can be as colorful as the number of approaches can be as many as family relationships there are out there, because there are going to be some where they might expect their friend or their sister or their brother or their parent to just do the parenting if they're in the same room, and there might be those that don't, that or would be offended if you did. And I think Sarah and I tend more towards, I don't know, I think it just depends on who it is. If we trust them and we're occupied, by all means, like, step in. But at the same time, Sarah and I are if there's a boundary that needs to be set, then it needs to be established. If not, then just let them do their thing.
And maybe it's also a good learning opportunity for the child too. Like when my nieces and nephews first moved in with us, it was a culture shock to everybody because the kids are used to being one way, and now they're in a different house, not even their own. So there's new rules to follow, and I think I should be saying this to Evie if I'm not, but like when I have to do something that's in more my style that maybe she's not used to, once we talk it through, and I do this with my nieces and nephews, at the very end I always finish with, no matter what you do, I'm always going to love you, and just make sure that they know I'm not doing this out of, what's a good word, like just strict or pure anger and no other reason, but it's that I'm looking out for the better of my nieces and nephews, of Evie. And but yeah, if it solicits a reaction, like an emotional reaction, because it hasn't been something that they were used to, very quick to remind them that. Explain why I did what I did, and let them know I still give them a big hug and just whisper in their ear, I still love you. And
yeah, I think that, apologies here, a little distracted. The baby, the kids are being babysat, so just, but that again, that comes back to that connection, is like you're communicating that connection and using that whatever it was, that correction or just moment of asking questions to get them to think about what they're doing. It becomes a moment of connection, and that's huge. And I think at the end of the day, like that's the goal with bringing your grandparents, or like your parents, your kids' grandparents, their aunts and uncles, their adopted aunts and uncles, and into the fold. It's like at the end of the day, if they are building a deeper connection, a better relationship, when one that is healthy and whole and good, then let her rip. That was something I learned in this interaction with Evie's out-of-state grandparents, is that, like, at a certain point, I just need to let go and just trust. Like, somebody adding, in my mind, like an unnecessary correction, like if she's climbing on the banister and I'm cool with her climbing on the banister and they say get down, it's like, no big deal. It's not the end of the world. And then on the flip side, there's respect for elders that can be shown in moments like that. It might not be like, there are multiple lessons to be learned in any given instance.
absolutely.
Yeah, it just comes down to connection and trust. And if you don't trust that person, then have a conversation before that, or don't put your kids in a position where it comes down to that.
Right. Yeah, I think, again, just with the examples and that, I think that's a good answer. I like it. I don't have kids. This is stuff I normally wouldn't be thinking about. But one thing I do think about is that I do want my kids to have some type of special relationship with their grandparents like I've been able to have with mine. And even with my aunts and uncles. Like, there's a couple of my uncles that when I just need to talk, they always pick up the phone for me and we just chat. We'll go fishing together and just spend time together. Like, all my uncles have been just amazing role models in my life, and of different specific virtues or habits that I find very important and seek. So it's just like I have all these men, my dad, my uncles, the memories that I have with both my grandfathers because they're both passed, and the virtues and habits that they had. And it's just, that's one thing I have thought about a lot. It's just, I want, like, one of the grandpas to teach him how to fish because that's who taught me how to fish.
Yeah.
One of the grandmas just to be that Grandma Gina to them that I had. I want my kids to be able, when they're in their 20s, to just say, you know what, I'm gonna go visit Grandma just on a whim because it's someone who you value so much and love so much, and you want to have that connection that we've been talking about for as long as possible.
Yeah. And I think it's a powerful thing, that love, those memories. And I think it could even be argued that that connection, like the example you talked about with your uncles, that uncles and aunts and even just close friends of family, there's huge opportunity there in the relationships that can be built with our kids, because parents, they're supposed to love us. Grandparents, it's their job to love us. And again, this is obviously talking to that, like those very specific scenarios where, like, we talked about this at the beginning, not everybody has that, and that's its own can of worms, and that's difficult. But parents are supposed to love, like grandparents are supposed to love. So if you receive that love, then if you don't receive it, like that's traumatic. If you do receive it, it's taken for granted. Now, but if you get that, if you have that relationship from an aunt, an uncle, multiple, or a close friend of the family, then it's like, oh dang. Especially as you get older and you recognize that relationship. And maybe this is how it is with you, with your uncles. Oh, they care enough. Like, they're not just asking because they, like, they're going out of their way to talk, to spend time, and that just reinforces that, like, oh, like, I am loved. I am a person that people care about, and I think that can have huge impact on our kids.
Yeah. If it's something we need in our 30s and beyond, like, how much more our kids need that?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the role you're playing in your nieces and nephews' lives is huge, whether you realize it or not. But
it's hard.
Like,
I'm not gonna downplay that. But I do appreciate the fact that they're safe, that they're getting through this tough time that they are. And that I am able to play the role that I can play.
Yeah. So we talked about a lot. We've talked about connection, relationships. We've talked about communication, trust. Are we missing anything?
No, I think I had some questions, but I think honestly, throughout your monologues,
yeah,
you actually covered all of that, because, like, to me it was, as an aspiring dad, like, how can I start to get through all that, and you just stress communication is connection. It's like I need to focus on building that. I need to focus on actually having proper and good communication with my parents, with my nieces and nephews now, and so that way, when I have my own kids, like it's just gonna be a natural thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What else would you have for someone in my position?
I think from the standpoint, lesson learned from my standpoint, don't assume, because you know what that does to you and me. And then to answer your question, like from the external standpoint of an aunt, an uncle, a close friend who wants to be involved in their nieces and nephews' lives, if in doubt, ask. Just like, hey,
Yeah.
how would you handle this situation? Or like, do you want me to step in? Don't you want me to step in? Or in the example of the kids jumping on the table, it's not a matter of life or death. If it's a matter of life or death, jump in for sure. But it's like, hey, you want me to handle this or you got this? Something like that. If in doubt. Otherwise, just let her rip.
Yeah. And I think going back to Matt Edmondson's episode 2, what he left us there at the end, that's been still resonating with me. The entirely different type of but very special and intimate role you can play in the kids' lives. And even you have your own nieces and nephews on Sarah's side, and you're a dual role Paul.
Yeah. And I mean that it's interesting because, and this is probably more on me than anything, but like I do feel a bit more of an outs, like with my siblings, kids, with my nieces, on my sister's side, like I feel so comfortable, part of the family, whatever. But they were also like born as I was part of the family, but Sarah being the youngest of her family and me marrying into the family, and she already had lots of her nieces and nephews. I think only one of them has been born since I married into the family. I still feel a bit of an outsider, and that's probably more on me than anything. But I have been reflecting lately. Okay, like I still bear some responsibility as their uncle and like opportunity. I'm not going to force anything, but to be loving and caring and supportive and just jovial. Just build that relationship.
Advantage of those moments that you are in their lives.
And Sarah does such a great job of that with her, like asking about their school and their sports and their anxieties and their excitements and all that. So I do ride on her coattails a bit. Let her do the hard lifting. But yeah, you're right. Like it's a role that I have to take seriously as well.
Well, I finally got to ask that question. I've never brought up the fact of we brought up you have nieces and nephews, but I've never actually asked your thoughts on being a funkle.
Yeah, I'm glad that you have, because it is something that is not necessary. It's so easy it's going to be it's not a priority because Evie and Liam are my priority, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't give it time of day. So I think there's room for improvement there.
Wow. Yeah. There always is, trust me, as a professional uncle.
Yes, indeed. And that's what parenting is. That's what uncling is, aunting, whatever the verb is. It's not about being perfect. It's about just showing up. Just show up. Be present. Be intentional.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Love it. You wanna close this out, Andrew?
No, you do the closings.
This was your episode, man. You're the host. Okay.
You just got that smooth intro, outro voice.
Oh, I don't know about that. You're the one with the radio voice.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Jury's out still.
Okay. Anyway, so great topic today, Andrew. Thank you for the topic. We started off talking about grandparents, but in the end we talked about like any extended family and their involvement in parenting. It takes a village, relationship, connection. communication, trust, and more relationship and connection. That's what it all comes down to. And just showing up, being present. So a lot of really good stuff today. Let us know, for those listening, what challenges have you come across either incorporating loved ones into your parenting style or adapting to somebody else's new parenting style? Like, what are challenges? Share some fun stories. We would love to hear it, because
I'm interested in that. How are you building that community and culture? Say you're trying to break the cycle of not so good parenting into being a good parent, or you don't have, your parents are no longer with us, and so how are you trying to do all of that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, let us know. And for this week, join me in being intentional about showing up for your loved ones. And yeah, ask one question or clarify one thing if the opportunity arises with your loved ones. Yeah. So that's a wrap. If you like this episode, like, subscribe, share, in that order. I don't know. Not in that order. Anyway, get this podcast out there to your friends, to your fellow, or if you want your parent to listen to this and be like, hey, we need to have a talk, or an uncle or aunt or whatever, drop that to them too.
We do have good reviews with grandparents.
We have great reviews with grandparents. Amazing. The best. The absolute best.
The best.
You know, everybody says we have the best podcast. Anyway. Oh, wait. This was not a smooth outro, buddy. Goodbye, everybody. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
We haven't done one of our classic duos in a minute, but not that the audience really cares or would know. So now they do.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just going to end this like a romantic, like a newly dating couple. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for dealing with us, for putting up with us. Subscribe, share, all the fun things. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you all.
All right. Toodles. Bye.
Toodles.